And good morning to you again, Chris. We're watching as the Pope's motorcade makes its way to the heliport there. Marine One standing by to get him on board. And we've seen a number of people lining the Brooklyn Promenade here to get a glimpse as he makes his journey out of New York, including Toby Gardner. You said you live a few blocks away here in Brooklyn Heights. What made you stop by here this morning?
Well, it's a very special occasion to see the Pope both land a couple days ago and leave. Something you'll probably never see again in my life. I mean, or if I do, I may not be in Brooklyn Heights because it'll be priced out by that point.
And so, I mean, it's been a whirlwind of a couple of days here. As a New Yorker, what's it been like to see such an official of the church right here in New York, your hometown? It's really special, and I really appreciate the fact he talks about poverty, the rights of the dispossessed, immigration, climate change. He's talked about real issues that matter to a lot of New Yorkers. All right. Thank you so much, Toby, for stopping with us. And Chris and Mary, we're hearing the Pope is actually now at the heliport, about to board onto that chopper to head over to JFK. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
You have that right, Janelle. There he just got out of that. You can't see him so well.
Sadly, partially obstructed. We can see the bottom of his robes there. If you look right below the two that's on your screen, you can see he's on the other side.
You can see his black shoes.
Everything has been so beautifully choreographed right up until this point where the pool cameras are set up here at the heliport. They're on the other side of the chopper, so we may not, obviously we're not going to see the Pope go up the stairs and enter this chopper as it heads to JFK.
I think you might see him through that little window.
Exactly.
You see his robes there.
Right below the right behind the captain's cockpit there, you can see.
So he will take this helicopter over to JFK Airport, about 10 minutes, and once at JFK, he will depart New York. We want to keep him here. Is there with that beautiful front row seat, giving her a perfect view of the Pope. Tell us what you're seeing now and who you're meeting.
We're actually seeing the Ospreys start landing first. We saw, I believe, 3 of them. So we know that Marine One with the Pope is not too far behind. Marine One, of course, on loan from the President of the United States. You can see here on the tarmac, even more people start to line up. We have the bishops. Bishop DiMarzio was just here a moment ago of Brooklyn. There's also several auxiliary bishops from Brooklyn, as well as Bishop William Murphy from the Diocese of Rockville Center on Long Island. If my cameraman can just pan a little bit to the left, you can see here from behind these nuns who are also anxiously awaiting the Pope. Oh, whoop, I think we see Marine One now. It's coming into focus, I believe. The nuns who are here on the tarmac are waiting to greet Pope Francis. They're from Precious Blood Monastery in Brooklyn. 4 of them actually are Argentinian. They have with them a bouquet of white roses to give to Pope Francis in honor of his devotion to Saint Therese, the little flower. They also have a plate of cookies to give him as well, in addition to a book of images of the Marian paintings that are on the ceiling of the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph in Prospect Heights, Brooklyn. So they're waiting to give that to him as soon as he lands here. There is no official program here, but he is expected to talk with some of the people who've gathered, a lot of them parishioners from Brooklyn and Queens who won a raffle, other people, airport workers, some other dignitaries. We were speaking with Nassau County Executive Ed Mangano. Former Fire Commissioner Salvatore Cassano is also here. And a few people that we have gotten a chance to speak with who are physically suffering. We spoke with a 15-year-old girl named Jackie a short time ago. She's in a wheelchair. She has cerebral palsy. Her father was telling us they just found out a day ago they were going to get the opportunity to be here. We asked, does she think she'll get a miracle? She says she doesn't know, but just being here gives her hope. And Chris and Mary, just to see her face light up in her wheelchair, just at the mere thought of being in Pope Francis's presence was enough to give her so much hope that a miracle would just be kind of the icing on the cake, it seems like, at this point. But now we're seeing Marine One land. This is so exciting, I have to say. And the Pope is expected to, of course, get off Marine One and walk over to the crowd. A lot of them, the cameras are up, the Vatican flags are up. They have mini flags they've been flying this morning. A lot of people on their tippy toes out here.
Yeah, that's a good turnout there, Andrea. Not that we didn't expect that there would be, but you can see the Vatican flags are flying. Nice little handout for everyone. And the phones are ready to go.
That's the cameras are up and ready.
From Fifth Avenue to his arrival the other day to right now, everybody has those phones out. And everybody wants it. It's such a great shot to see so many people capturing these images.
Well, look at that. Here he is landing at JFK Airport. Our Andrea Grimes has that perfect view, and here we are showing it to you live. Pope Francis at JFK Airport. This is his final stop. He will be leaving New York in just a few minutes, headed to Philadelphia. Very busy schedule in that city. He'll be at Independence Hall, and a mass with more than 1 million people expected for tomorrow. And as he arrives there, many people are hoping that they get a chance to see him as well. So many people expected to turn out in Philadelphia. In fact, they've closed roads already days ahead of his arrival there. And here he is at JFK Airport. And Andrew's been talking to so many people that got there very early this morning, lined up and ready to see Pope Francis.
Well, I mean, Mary, you mentioned if you weren't here, you'd want to be there too, correct?
Sure.
I mean, why not? Best seat in the house. What better to do on a Saturday morning than wish a fond farewell to the pontiff, who has had such a tremendous, monumental visit here to New York City the past few days. As the Marine helicopter is being brought in, you can see the pontiff in the window there. A little bit different than the Fiat. Can't roll the window down to extend the hand with the fisherman ring, but hopefully he'll give a few waves as he does deplane off the chopper in just a second here. But a successful touchdown here at JFK for the Holy Father as he gets ready to board that American Airlines Boeing 777 bound for Philadelphia. Andrea mentioned before, Shepherd 1. Really more of a media term. It's not necessarily the official title of the plane, but it's not retrofitted for the Pope. There are no amenities. There's no flatbed. There's no conference room like an Air Force One, which is basically a moving White House, to be an airborne White House, if you will. All he has basically is a first-class seat all to himself, but that's it. And just some of the trappings you'll see on the plane. There's an official seal that's been affixed right side of the door of the Vatican, and then the 2 Vatican flags hanging from the cockpit before takeoff. But other than that, it's just a normal charter flight with the full press corps in the rear in the coach section. So
you mentioned no additional amenities, and everywhere he's gone, he said, "Yeah, you know, I don't want any extras. No, I'm fine."
Simple, simple, simple. That was the Vatican's directive to the Archdiocese, and it's so nice to see that they did not follow that direction at all.
And Father, weren't you saying that his home away from home, that he just wanted 2 things, right?
Still water and bananas.
That's it. Yeah.
So what did he get? He got 11,000 square feet, 5 floors in the wealthiest section of town.
Well, that was a lovely welcome for the Pope, I know. But at the Vatican, you know, he lives very simply, right? A small apartment where he could really choose the papal residence, which is much more luxurious.
Right. Well, I've heard that actually, while the papal palace is certainly extravagant, that the papal apartments that were used were a little bit simpler than people would imagine. But even to him, that was too much for him.
Yeah, room 201 at the Vatican Hotel. That's
something like that, right?
Incredible. It's just for what he has access to, for what he does use is incredible.
They are getting ready
let's try to take this picture full if we can, so we can see.
Departure from Shepherd 1. Security first, taking a look there, stepping down, and Pope Francis, we believe, still seated. I think he may have just gotten up, and we will watch him depart from the helicopter and then board the plane on his way to Philadelphia.
Marine Guard coming out for the official salute. Normally, if the president was deplaning, the standing guard, of course, waiting for the Holy Father. Here you go, Cardinal Dolan coming down the stairs right now, followed by, there he is, Pope Francis.
People's Pope. You heard the applause there as we could just see him come out there. And now they are showing him the way to where the crowds have gathered, a nice wave from Pope Francis. And Andrea, you're right there up close.
We are, and when the door opened and you could just get the first shot of him, the crowd just erupted in cheers, and he smiled and waved to everybody. They are waving their little Vatican flags. Everyone's got their cameras up. You can see right now he's flanked by Cardinal Dolan there from the Archdiocese of New York, but walking towards him is Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio of Brooklyn, and some nuns from Brooklyn as well, who are presenting him with a bouquet of white roses. Let's just listen to the cheers. One of the nuns that I spoke with, oh, sorry, Chris. One of the nuns that I spoke with earlier, just asking her, what does it mean? What did his trip mean? What did the whole visit mean for New York? said, it shows how much of a family the Catholic Church is, and I really think that that's something that he did show. So many people, you guys were just talking about it, people excited to be Catholic now, and even people who aren't Catholic, we're just excited at his presence. It's just such a wonderful time to be a New Yorker, to be an American as well, as we bid farewell here to Pope Francis. The crowd here just started chanting, "We are family," the old song.
Well, you know, it's funny. He's going to be hearing that. He's going to be hearing that song quite a bit today, because Sister Sledge is actually performing one of the concerts we'll be seeing later in Philadelphia. The whole family approach, of course. So you will see that. But I will say this, and Father, you can chime in here too. For the nuns, they were recognized at St. Patrick's Cathedral the other night. Got a standing ovation. The Pope gave them gave him a standing ovation for that, and for them to be so prominently seen here this morning. It's been a nice visit.
Yeah, they often take a back seat to things because they raised us as children. They taught in our grammar schools. They've run so many of our hospitals. So much of our social work was on the back of the religious women. And the Pope acknowledged that. And everybody there. It wasn't just the sisters themselves who applauded. The whole cathedral.
Yeah, it was definitely something that did not go unnoticed.
We are looking at the final moments before Pope Francis will depart to New York for Philadelphia, but he's certainly taking his time, making sure he gets to see each and every person there.
He's not in a rush. They'll wait for him.
He's been pretty much on time, though.
He has been great.
For his entire schedule. Yeah. Even with this chance to greet everyone, here he goes down the line. Each and every person has a chance to meet the Pope, say a few words to him, and he certainly doesn't seem to be rushing anyone along.
He's actually really only greeting and saying goodbye to just a few people. Most of that security. He has had such a layer, 3 and 4 layers of security, both Secret Service and Swiss Guard around him. And you can see in the white here, they're facing us Alberto Gaspari from the Vatican, who's coordinated this whole trip, which has been choreographed beautifully to this point. But the Pope saying goodbye to some of the gentlemen that have obviously spent so much time not only taking care of him on this trip, but also Cardinal Dolan and everyone else who will have to now say goodbye to him as they usher him up the stairs to this flight down to Philadelphia. And then in about a half hour, 40 minutes, they'll touch down in Philadelphia and begin what's going to be another day and a half of a line of events for this Pope.
For members of the clergy, this has been so important, so special, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
What will this mean for you?
Well, it's a challenge. In addition to the joy of knowing the Pope has been among us, and we've had banners outside church and all sorts of things just trying to excite the people on his visit, he's laid down the gauntlet to us to do what he's doing and say, you know, we have to go out now and make sure we are really preaching the gospel, not just in good homilies, not just in programs, but in our own outreach to the people, the poor and the marginalized in every place. And every parish, every town, every city has them. And it could be so easy for us to forget about them.
How important is it for the Catholic Church, for the Archdiocese of New York, Washington, Philadelphia, you name it, to make sure the momentum, they keep up the momentum now, that there is not a letdown after a visit like this?
We've been praying for something like this to happen, saying, you know, Lord, give us a little help here to get the message out. And now he's done. Oh, it's windy.
Windy, a little slow, going up the stairs. Tough with that wind.
You'd think someone would take the Pope's bag.
Can someone help him?
Maybe he insisted on carrying his own bag, knowing him.
Having a little bit of trouble getting up the steps, slowly there.
He also has a knee problem.
He does. He has a knee problem, but he's also, you know, he's been very quick to be, you know, to say during these trips that I'll take care of it. Don't worry. Wants to handle things himself.
I'm guessing someone did offer to carry his bag, and he said, I have it.
Yeah. But there he is, and you can see for the final moments, hopefully maybe he'll give us one more turn and a wave as he greets the captain and the crew on board this American Airlines flight. But these are the final moments of seeing Pope Francis here in New York, and it looks like he is headed in to the cabin right now. An incredible visit. Mary, if I can quote Cardinal Dolan for a second here, thanks for stopping by. Come back soon. It's been a tremendous trip, and it's sad to see him go, because we've been obviously on high alert here for the last couple of days. It's been wonderful covering this event. If we could speak selfishly for just a moment, it has truly been something you'll never forget, and I know that I echo that and speak for a number of people on the streets who have had a chance to catch that glimpse or that quick picture, or even be close enough for a great selfie with the Pope the last few days.
Yeah, it has been a tremendous opportunity, and I had the chance to see him up close at the United Nations, and now he heads off off to Philadelphia, a number of major events there. It has been great to have him here in the Big Apple, Father.
Absolutely. Too bad he couldn't take in a show, though.
It goes by quickly. There was not a moment for this man to do anything but what was scripted. But they did. They hit on all of the thing to make this trip a success rather than just doing the major events that you knew he would do. I thought it was beautifully choreographed, as we mentioned before, where he got some really great opportunities to be. I think that one of the biggest concerns from a safety standpoint, with so many layers of Secret Service, that what this Pope likes to do, this quote-unquote Pope of Surprises, likes to get involved and kind of mix with the crowd and get in there. A huge fear for the Secret Service and the NYPD here. They afforded him those opportunities where he could be. We got those great pictures with the kids. We got those great pictures with him taking selfies from Washington straight here to New York with different people that wanted to get close with him. That security was there, but at the same time, he was still able to do the things that make this Pope of the people.
Absolutely.
In papacies of the past, we haven't seen this type of outreach.
No, John Paul II was the first to really start that, to try to be among the people and bringing the church into the modern world. It was set in the Second Vatican Council and to document the church in the modern world, to try to get the church to approach the modern things. It's been actually a long process. If you look back to just a little over 100 years ago, one of the few good things that Mussolini did was settling the old Roman question by the Vatican Accord that created the Vatican City as an independent nation. This way the Pope was not a head of state, as the papal states had dissipated over the centuries. He could not be a subject of another person as another leader. So they created the Vatican for him, but it's 150 acres in Rome. So it's not anything that's of great temporal power. Now he was free to be a spiritual leader. And we're seeing the effects of that after having to deal with the modernist problem and then the 2 world wars, everything that the church would like to have done. A lot of the seeds were actually set at the First Vatican Council, but were preempted because of the unification of Italy. Now the Second Vatican Council did that and was able to put us on our solid feet again. Pope Paul VI, for example, with Humane Vitae, a clear reminder to people. It took
was here
time.
In New York. That was back in 1965.
Yes. And after all of the turmoil and everything that took place, it was important for the church to clearly set down a reminder to people of what we believe, and this is what we're about. And it's taken a couple of popes to do that. John Paul then was the first to say, let's take that message into the crowds, knowing, of course, with mass transportation and mass media that you could use it to our advantage. So he brought it all over the world.
And to see this Pope so instantly be able to connect with the faithful, the numbers on Twitter are incredible to see.
What are we looking at, 25 million in 9 different languages right now?
Absolutely, yes. And the number has gone up by about several hundred thousand since he started his visit to the United States. It's very different than in the past because people are able to get his message so quickly, instantly.
The use of modern technology has been such a boon and a blessing with that, because you can get things out and you can get directly his words. And a lot of times things, just like a game of telephone, you know, they get transferred along the way, and by the time you get it, it's completely different from what you said. He can actually put his own words out and people can read it directly.
And
Twitter has a way of not diluting things.
And that's with a younger generation so quickly. Also coming up with an album in a couple of months in November. Wake Up, Go, Go is an album of some of his words connected with music. I think it'll be on some playlists.
Wake Me Up Before You Go Go by Wham. That's a way to connect with people my age.
So we'll wait for that for sure. And as we wait for the plane to depart for Philadelphia.
They're just loading up a few more for the press members on the back. You can see the rear staircase where they're filling the coach cabin with some of the travel team that are traveling with the Pope right now. Once that ladder moves away and they close the rear door, they will be ready for takeoff. About a 9:30 expected arrival in Philadelphia. As you can see, the American flag and the flag of the Vatican hanging from the cockpit right now. They'll close those windows up pretty quickly, and then it's a quick flight, and then we will only be spectators from what the Pope is up to down in Philadelphia. Again, some tremendous, another very active schedule for the Holy Father when he gets to the city of brotherly love, but massive crowds are expected, massive traffic issues down there, just like we've been dealing with here in New York. But when you're closing the Ben Franklin Bridge down there and only having people making it more of a pedestrian walkway, you know there's going to be some issues down there. But they're expecting close to 1 million people for tomorrow's Mass. It's going to be big, very big.
And 500,000 people today when the Pope does leave for Philadelphia. The crowds are already gathered in that city. He is going directly to a mass. There won't be much time for a break. He is ready to go. 45-minute flight and then off to the cathedral for mass immediately. So, Father, he has had a whirlwind visit.
Absolutely. And now he's really going to the main event. Everything we've seen here in New York, because, well, between Washington being the national capital and New York being the crossroads of the world, but I'm told that one of the reasons why this Pope didn't celebrate Mass such at Yankee Stadium or Shea City Field, rather, in addition to the fact that the Yankees were playing last night, was that they didn't want anything to shadow or overshadow the main event of the World Meeting of Families in Philadelphia.
Tough, you know, because he has such a presence and because there is such a reaction, very difficult to do that. I know Philadelphia thinks that's going to be the trademark event. I think a lot of people here in New York would argue that there was a number of events here that were the quote-unquote trademark. And then if you were to go to Philadelphia, some may say the canonization mass, or speaking to the joint session, or appearing, you know, before 20,000 people on the South Lawn. I mean, it's tough to pick what's the biggest event of this trip.
Yeah, that was an amazing thing, the canonization of St. Junipero Serra. The first time that an American saint has been canonized on American soil. Usually those are done in the Vatican. So to come to the United States and do it here for us, and when you think of, you know, all the names that we know in California, all the big cities, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, those were all the missions founded by Father Junipero Serra, and a tremendous impact he has on our own history, especially in the West Coast.
It was nice to see him pay tribute to the statue in Statuary Hall, too, after the speech of Father Serra.
The Pope is seated, and they are getting ready for takeoff. Hard to see him through the window, but yes, he is there. He is seated. Maybe seatbelt on. Get ready to go. And Cardinal Dolan is out greeting so many people who have turned out. What a moment this has been for him. I really enjoyed him calling the Pope Papa Francesco at a number of the stops.
I thought last night during Mass, to the very end of it, with him speaking to the Pope amid the breaks of the thunderous applause, was wonderful. Hopefully in the next couple of minutes we'll get to show you some excerpts of that. I thought it was a trademark moment, and you've got to believe that he's just got to feel such a tremendous sense of not only pride, but relief. At the same time, you talk about someone who deserves a nice pat on the back, because I know he was shepherding the Pope every step of the way, and it seems as though everything really could not have gone off better.
It did. It really went beautifully without a hitch. I mean, we've been to things, for example, when Pope Benedict came to the seminary, and we were all prepared for things one way, and then the Secret Service came in and totally changed all that, and we were thrown for a loop. So many times you expect the unexpected to happen, but everything went absolutely beautifully.
It's been so nice to see so many people turn out, run out. You know, going to Central Park yesterday, some people were really sprinting, just trying to get their chance to see the Pope. So many people having a chance to get close to him. Were you surprised at how many were allowed to get as near to the Pope as they were?
With all the worries about security, and with always worries that there would be a threat on his life or something like that, yes. But I guess that meant security felt we've got this in control. That, you know, these people going forward they didn't have to worry that every single one of them was, you know, somebody trying to attack him, but that he could come and greet his faithful. And perhaps that they were realizing that this is our responsibility, to allow him to greet his faithful and just make sure that anyone who would be harming him is kept away from that crowd.
They did, I thought, a very nice job, because they did travel so closely with him. When a lot of people obviously reaching out, they did a nice job of just kind of gently brushing the hands away from the people that were reaching or lunging. I did notice at the school yesterday, one young lady did try to embrace the Pope. They were quick. It was a very abrupt, quick to move, to really, they stepped right in and got her up. A gentle kind of, you know, a close nudge, but when she put the arm around his neck, that was when they really stepped in. So I thought they did a very nice job of keeping that balance, not making it seem like he's not approachable, because there is such a layer of stern security, you know, Secret Service members there, but at the same time making sure he's safe. I think you have to give tremendous credit to the Secret Service, to the Swiss Guard, who you obviously have to protect him all the time with what they have to deal with this Pope constantly wanting to be with the people. And of course, you know, Bill Bratton, the NYPD, all of the different agencies that worked in conjunction with one another to pull this off. This was everyone that I've talked to the last few days about, they said, take the Super Bowl, okay, from back in the Gulf War, back in 1991, when there were snipers everywhere around a football stadium. He said, multiply that times 10. Yeah. That's what this event was like.
And away from the Pope, through the window there, as they are about to depart JFK Airport, his hand is raised. goodbye to New York and farewell to the Pope. It's been great having you here. Please come back again anytime.
What a trip. I'll tell you, it's so sad to see him go. But a nice closing shot there as Pope Francis wraps up his trip here to New York City. 39 hours. Tough to pick out a moment that was better than the other. They just seemed to kind of snowball. Every day, every hour got better and better. But there it is, American Airlines headed towards Philadelphia right now. A nice little 30-minute flight or so. So that American 777 is now ready to take off from JFK Airport. Our Don Champion is in Philadelphia. Don, we can tell you that the 777 is now taxiing, ready for takeoff.
We are watching this every moment, Don.
He will be there with you shortly. What can we expect once he touches down in Philadelphia?
He's going to visit about 200 inmates at the biggest...
Well, we are waiting for him and, you know, watching the live feed of the Pope getting on the plane, struggling with the wind there. I'm happy to report it's a little less windy here in Philadelphia at this hour. As you mentioned, the Pope should be landing here in Philadelphia around 9:30 or so, and he has yet another packed day here, and there's a lot of excitement for his visit. Once he lands, he'll head over here to Center City, Philadelphia, and he's actually going to be holding Mass at the Basilica of the Saints Peter and Paul. After that, he's going to be heading over to Independence Mall this afternoon, where he's going to be speaking to a crowd of about 50,000 people. A lot of Hispanics from this community will be there, and he's going to be talking about issues like religious freedom and immigration as well. And it's quite interesting. He's actually going to be speaking from the same podium that Abraham Lincoln spoke from to deliver the Gettysburg Address. So, you know, people here in Philadelphia, people have been converging here from all over the country, once again, for the World Meeting of Families. And so a lot of folks here have been watching the coverage from New York, watching the coverage from D.C., so there's a lot of anticipation here. As you alluded to earlier, security is very high here in Center City, Philadelphia. No cars are allowed on many of the streets surrounding the Ben Franklin Parkway, where tomorrow the Pope will hold his final Mass in America. About 1 million people are expected to attend that Mass. A grand finale to a grand trip to America, Chris and Mary.
Don, can you sense the excitement down there? I know you've been from city to city.
He has. I mean, when I worked with him,
repeat that again, I'm sorry.
When we worked together in Washington, boy, you can see the smiles on so many faces. And Don was there among the crowds, really getting a chance to meet so many people who were just so excited to have Pope Francis in their presence. It's been a spiritual journey. It's been an emotional visit. It's been historic for Pope Francis beginning his journey in Washington, D.C. He is on a 6-day visit to the United States. Second leg of the trip almost over, going to this last stop in Philadelphia, and Cardinal Dolan greeting so many people there who turned out.
And we've just been told that the Pope is 23rd in line for takeoff.
I hope not.
He should be there by 11.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, of course.
Precautions, do they have to go over that with him?
Yeah, I think they're telling everybody, stand down. This American Airlines is taking off first. So there, you can see Cardinal Dolan. Some of the people that did get there early now having an opportunity to meet and greet and say a quick hello to Cardinal Dolan there at JFK Airport as we continue to watch the plane taxi and then get ready for takeoff. And as you just saw, the city of Philadelphia next up on the Pope's itinerary, and they are ready to go. They've got some major events down there. It's a beautiful day here in New York. Going to be a beautiful day down there. It seems to be perfect. Everything is just, it's been a gorgeous, the weather has been a gorgeous backdrop for what's been a pretty momentous trip.
Hasn't it been?
Everything from, if you remember,
blue skies.
Yeah, just from when he walked out of the Vatican residence in Washington, is that first morning, the way the sun, meeting with those children, the way the sun was hitting their head, it was just gorgeous.
It's been magnificent. It
golden
really
glow.
has been. Yeah. What will you remember most about this trip, Father?
The positive reception of the people. In years past, when popes have come, and as wonderful as their messages, who have said largely many of the same things that he said, I mean, nothing has changed in the teachings. Somehow people have grasped it this time. There's something about Francis that makes them relate to him. Maybe because he was a pastor for so long and came most recently from being the Cardinal Archbishop of Buenos Aires, that he was among the people so much that he hasn't created a distance from them, that he was among them, and people can sense that.
And he is still a pastor.
And he is the chief pastor of the church. Exactly.
And that was one of the things about a lot of the speeches he gave, more of a pastoral approach rather than I know in Congress they were afraid that this Pope was going to come in and kind of hit them over the head with topics that he wanted to get across, but it wasn't done that way. It was much more pastoral, and kind of going back to what you were saying, being back in his days in Buenos Aires and being a man of the people, taking mass transit and things like that, having that constant connection. I know you've known about this Pope, and many people have, but did you have this kind of excitement of, oh, I cannot wait for the American people to experience this Pope firsthand?
Well, once we got to know him, yes, when we started to see this is someone different, there was every hope that this is someone who will be able to reach people. Seeing St. John Paul and Benedict as brilliant as they were, I mean, who was more of a people person than St. John Paul? Yeah. Yet even with him, there was a way that people kind of pushed away, as if somehow, whether it was the beliefs or the things he was talking about more, they didn't grasp the call to that they too can follow this, that the happiness that he knows they can know.
One magazine called this a gentle revolution.
Yes,
I think that's
I would
a very
agree
good
with
term
that, definitely.
because he's certainly making his mark, but doing it in a way that is very comfortable for people.
And when you look at him, it's, yeah, he's very quiet when he's there. He almost looks like he's uncomfortable being in the spotlight. You know, I was watching him taking pictures with the Secretary General of the United Nations, and you could see he's looking like, all right, can I get off now? You know, he did not look like he was enjoying this limelight, and maybe people could relate to that.
But then the difference when he went into the crowds or was with children,
that's where he was comfortable.
Did you see that bright smile? Yes.
Put him around the kids. That smile, that is the lasting image. That smile when he was around those children and with some of the elderly was just incredible. And there we see it, Mary, the final moments that Pope Francis will be here in New York City.
Taking a live picture for you. Pope Francis heading to Philadelphia this morning on the last leg of his U.S. tour. New York getting its final glimpse of the Pope's plane as it takes off from JFK Airport.
And there you have it. As that American Airlines 777 with Pope Francis on board and his entire team now headed towards the city of brotherly love, due to set down in probably about 25 minutes. It's a quick flight, big plane, moves quickly, so it's going to be there a little quicker than your normal shuttle to Philadelphia. And then the events in Philly begin, and it's again the end of a wonderful trip here in New York. We wish the Pontiff a fond farewell and do hope that he does come back sooner than later, as you can still hear some of the applause from the people on the ground at JFK as they send a sweet send-off for the Holy Father.
Pope Francis.